All right, then. So we were learning Boyer, and I think we were up to not actually sure what we were up to. Let's start from number 7 because it doesn't look so more familiar to me. Okay, so you can only take number 7 in the handout that I sent out last week, and then again today with some additions. So we said what is allowed is to take oichel by hand for immediate use. And the reason that this is mutter is because this is considered the way you eat. When you take food and you prepare it not before the meal, that's called food preparation. When you take the bad from the good even before you eat, right before you eat, that's also food preparation. And whenever you use a keli, that's also a form of food preparation. On the other hand, when you simply take what you want to eat, that's not called food preparation, that's called eating. So therefore, the rules of Boyer simply do not apply. And
so making a salad is considered eating?
As long as you are doing it right before eating, that's considered part of the eating process. That's correct. Because you don't have to put it directly into your mouth, as long as you're in the process of getting it ready to actually eat it. So,
yeah, but you can't take the bad from the good. You still have to take the good from the bad.
Correct. Because once you're taking the bad from the good, that's called preparing it for eating. Because you're removing what you want so that you'll be left with what you want to eat. Whereas when you take what you actually want to eat, that's the process that we call eating. That's what you do when you eat. You take what you want to eat. Now, the Ramah says that you can prepare before the meal for the entire meal. That means no matter how long the meal is, you're having a big farbrengen. You know the farbrengen is going to go for the whole afternoon. It's no problem. You could prepare all the stuff for it in advance. And that is a chiddush. The Mishnah Berurah points out that not everybody agrees with that chiddush, but that is the accepted halacha. Not only that, but the Magen Avraham adds that even from when people leave shul, because the meal is starting any minute momentarily, and it says as soon as you'll be ready, basically, so that's also considered right before eating. I did mention last week that some people add up to 1 hour, the Ben Ish Chai. Chaznish says a half hour, and so on. I do think we did this last week, because I remember we discussed if you could do any extra or not. Shlomo Zalman says you're allowed to do a little bit of extra preparation just so the amount that you serve looks generous, and the Alkut Yosef forbids that. Okay, I believe we did number 8 already, number 9 also. Okay, let's move on to number 11, Oichel from Oichel. So not only do the prohibitions of Boyer apply to bad and good items, but even when everything is good. But if it's two mine oichel, if it's two types of food, so the rules of Boyer do apply as well. The one that you want now is considered the oichel. The one that you don't want now, even though you may want it later, is considered psoilus. Excuse me. In a case where the oichel is the same min, and that is something that is a subject of some discussion, as we're going to see soon. But if it's considered the same min, if it's considered the same species, then there is no issue of oichel. So one case that's clear about is big and small pieces. You're allowed to remove the big pieces from the small pieces. That's not considered a different species. Small pieces from big pieces and so on. Even if the big and small pieces are a mix of different minim. So there is a situation of two minim But the fact is, you're not separating the minim into two. You're separating the big or the small. So that's not called boyer. When we say something is not called boyer, we mean that it's permissible to do regardless when you need it, whatever. I mean, you're not supposed to prepare for after Shabbos, but there's no rules about what you can take and what you must leave, and there's no rules about when you do it.
This is subjective, isn't it? What you want, right?
Yes.
Can I partner with you when I take the oranges for myself and the apples for you?
Yes, we discussed that last week. That is allowed. Yes, you are allowed to take out, even though some disagreed, but the Mishnah Berurah Paskin, you're allowed to take out what somebody else wants and gives it to them.
Specifically the thing that you don't want.
Exactly, even though you don't want it. Exactly. I think it was Rabbi Zalman, sorry, not the Mishnah Berurah. Yeah, Rabbi Zalman says that even though you don't want it, so you might think, well, your main objective is to get rid of it. Your main objective isn't because you're such a nice guy and you're preparing other people's stuff for them. But the fact is that somebody else wants it, so that allows it. We did say that Yashiv is not so happy with that because he considers your objective to be the main thing, which is that you don't want it. Now, we also discussed the Magen Avram, who says that if it is a little bit not so edible, then you have an issue, once again, of boyer midirabana. That means, let's say the outer leaves of the lettuce, they're limp. You could eat them, but kind of not usual to eat them. So that is midrabanan boyer. That being said, you can remove them to get to the inside, just like you're allowed to peel an orange or a banana, but that's derech achila. When we speak about derech achila, by the way, what we mean is that it's only allowed right before eating. So you wouldn't be allowed to prepare it in advance. Whereas if we speak about something that's not boyer at all, because it's the same min mamish, like we said, there are no rules of boyer at all. Now, the Bir Halacha does bring that the rules of Oichel and Oichel perhaps are not as strict as Psoilas and Oichel. And perhaps you're allowed to take the Oichel that you want from the Oichel that you don't want any time after the previous meal. It means you don't have to wait till right before the next meal. You can take it after the morning meal for the afternoon meal, after the night meal for the morning meal, as long as there's no meal in between. So it's a more broad definition of the altar. Rishonim. The Bir Halacha brings it, I don't remember who. But Lamaisa, the Alter Rebbe does not pass in like that. He says clearly exactly the same definition of the altar as Psoilas and Oichel is how to define Oichel and Oichel in terms of the one you want being like the Oichel, the one you don't want being like the Psoilas.
The Oichel and Oichel, the person is doing for a different pseudo would be pilot.
Yeah.
Oichel and Oichel. So a person's not allowed to prepare cloud, anything that isn't even not boyer.
No. It's considered boyer. When you want one and you don't want the other, the one you want is considered like the oichel. The one you don't want, even though it's edible, is considered like the psoilas. Because they're two minim, that's why it's a problem. If it would be the same min, then it's not a boyer at all, and there's no rules. But if it's two different minim, so then one you want is considered the oichel, the one you don't want is considered the psoilas. Now, there's an interesting machlokes between the Pri Megadim and the Mishnah Berurah.
This would be only if it's your one personal goal, right?
What do you mean?
Let's say you have like almonds and peanuts.
Yep.
But I'm allergic to peanuts, so I'm just eating the almonds. So for me, the peanuts are going to be solid, but someone else will take peanuts.
Odpam, you're allergic to almonds and you want the peanuts.
Yes, so
So you're taking what? If you're allergic, you won't even have it if it touches it. Maybe you won't even be in the same room.
I like only one type of the two that are already
Yeah,
mixed in this.
so,
So I'm taking only one kind.
but you're taking the one you want?
What I want.
Perfect, so what's the problem?
You just can't do that for meals.
Right, right before you want, exactly, right before you eat it,
So
so,
medium is you pick me up, so the other one considered as solid.
exactly.
Even
So you're
so
taking-
there's no solid, but it's.
You're taking good though. You're taking
For
good.
you, it's considered psilus at this time. So you can only take what you want.
So you wouldn't be able to take out, even if it's a food, you wouldn't be able to take it out of your plate.
Correct,
Then and there, even at that moment you wanna.
correct. Only take what you want. Leave behind what you won't want.
So let's say if I ate now all the almonds from the bowl.
Yeah.
I have all the peanuts left.
Yep.
2 hours, נמשיך עכשיו peanuts. I'm allowed to eat them?
Why not? Even right away, you can eat them. It's a problem.
No, because peanut was solid.
So what? Now you want it. It's no problem. There's no rules. No rule against eating them. Even right away. It's no problem.
So what will happen in celebration sheet?
Yeah.
That we cannot do it because it's gonna be multi showers and then
Do what? Do what? Explain your question.
take you want the peanuts, but you want to leave the almonds. So you do that in celebration sheet, is he allowed to do that?
You want the peanuts.
Yeah.
And you don't want the almonds.
Right.
So you take what you want and you eat it.
Okay, but
You're not preparing for anything else. Not preparing.
so-
What's left is left. Whoever eats it, whenever they eat it, it's fine. So here's an interesting machlokes. What if you have two kinds of oichel and you don't want either of them?
Then there's no burr.
So why you have apples and oranges mixed up, and you're just a finicky guy. You're very obsessed with everything being just right. It bothers you that's mixed and handle it. So I'm just gonna separate it out. Apples, oranges, that's it. Pri Megadim says no problem because you don't want either one. So neither one is oichel, neither one is psilus. The Mishnah Berurah disagrees. Mishnah Berurah says that this is exactly what boyer is. Boyer is separating something into two things.
So sorting.
Sorting is what boyer is. The fact that you want one makes it allowed, not the fact that you don't want the other one. What makes it
Well,
allowed
the
is
fact that you want it sorted.
the fact that you want to actually use it is what makes it into derech achila. Without the derech achila concept, you're left with sorting. So he holds it's usher.
It's just like sorting Lego for no reason.
Exactly.
And we're not allowed to sort Lego by color or whatever.
Actually, I don't know about that. If I'm not a big Lego guy,
What was the question?
if you're allowed to sort Lego by color, what we said about shirts is I saw it in the beer shoe, that if they're used in a different way, then you can't sort by color. But if they're not used in a different way, then it's not significant. So I don't know how Lego works, but if they use, you want the red to make a fire, you want the blue to make a river, so they're used differently, then yes. If not, you know what I'm saying?
Then according to Pri Megadim, you're not allowed to, and according to Mishnah Berurah, you are allowed to?
No, on the contrary. Mishnah Berurah says you can't sort, period. You can only sort if you're
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
going to use one.
Rabbi,
Yeah, I hear Yoram again. It sounds like you're talking from Australia or something, but go ahead.
apologize for that. Okay, you allowed to take both of them and to remove it from the table? The orange and the apple?
One more time. If you're allowed to take them both off the table, yeah, why not?
And then when you go to the refrigerator, you can put whatever you like, or you have to put them in the same place?
You can't sort it in the refrigerator either, according to the Mishnah Berurah. You have to just put them in the refrigerator together.
Oh, okay.
It's according to Mishnah Berurah. Okay, we did have a little machloikas achronim. I don't remember if we mentioned it last week. If you plan to eat them both in the same meal, is there a get there of oichel for the one that you're going to eat first? In other words, usually we say whatever you eat in the same meal is all you can prepare before the meal. You don't have to wait till the middle of the meal to go and make the salad for the next course. You can do it all before. It's all derech achila. So here I have something I want to sort, and I'm going to use one of them for the first course, one of them for the second course. So do we have to dafka take the one out for the first course and leave the one for the second course, or does it make no difference? Because anyway, I'm using them both right away, so to speak, right away. One before the other, but so to speak, right away. So we had a little machloikas achronim. I don't remember who it was.
Can't believe it's
It's gonna be one foot at a time, so it doesn't make sense. You have to find, you're gonna take one foot of the plate and then the other one. You're not chewing both at the same time, so anything that you're not gonna eat together, you're gonna boil it.
No, the one you eat first. If you don't care if you're taking one spoon of each, obviously it makes a difference. But if you want to eat one before the other, so maybe you have to take that for the one you want to eat first.
Sounds like you're just preparing for the meal.
Right. Some say that. Some say no, because if you would be preparing it from something that you don't want, that's good enough. But once you have to compare one that you want first compared to something you don't want first, in comparison, it's still considered pseudus. The one you want first.
Only the ones you read.
Take the one you want. You're
Take
left
only
with the
ones
one you want. And then you're left with
So the
that.
question is, do you have to do the selection?
What's the
process,
exactly?
take what you
Which
want,
selection?
put that
Which
in
must you
everything else?
select?
Or
Correct.
can you do
Either one, exactly.
one-
Or just even take the one you don't want
take what you
first,
don't want first,
and it
put
makes
on
no
the plate,
difference.
and the ones
Exactly.
You want first, another plan, and serve the ones you want first.
Exactly.
Who says you can't do that? They're always remember this.
It was definitely in the Dirshu. Give me a moment. I have to remember all those names from that item. 2 minutes, number 15, both of which you plan to eat during the meal. One should remove the one he wants to eat first from the other one, Rav Moshe Feinstein. Eliashiv says he can remove whichever one he wants from the other. No rules, according to Eliashiv.
In general, with all of this,
Yes.
what if I close my eyes and pick out something at random, look at it, determine whether it's something I want or don't want, and then put it in the appropriate place? To make it easy, let's say I have green balls and red balls, and I want to use the red balls to play cricket, and I don't want the green balls. So I close my eyes, reach in, take a ball, look at it, and then either put it to the side or put it in a basket to. It's a select. Presumably, the selection is done at the point that I choose a ball. But if I'm not choosing and I'm completely indiscriminately holding on to something, I'm then incapable of doing a malacha.
So I'm going to tell you my understanding of it that I got from when I was learning back in Eretz Yisrael. I couldn't tell you the route that I got the understanding from, but somebody in the Beis Hara where I used to go. So here's my understanding. It turns on a dime, this question. It's like so. The whole thing of boyer is like chiyav chatas or mahet gomer. It's like it all depends on your head and what you're thinking, and it's so close. But here's my understanding of that question. So let's talk about a person who has cutlery that he's drying in the drying rack, and he wants to dry the cutlery. So he takes the cutlery, picks it up one at a time, randomly, not paying attention to what he's taking, dries it. Now he has a fork in his hand, puts the fork away. Next one, he takes it randomly, it's a knife, dries it, puts it away. Next one turns out to be a spoon, dries it, puts it away. That is mutter. I think Reb Shlomo Zalman says that clearly. On the other hand, and this was my understanding, I don't think I saw it inside, but this was my understanding of it. On the other hand, if you have cutlery that are mixed up and you want to sort them, but you know it's Asar on Shabbos, so you don't dafka look for the forks, you just randomly take whatever comes out. Fork, put it away. Knife, put it away. Spoon, put it away. That's Asar. Because you're doing boyer, even though you're not deciding in advance how you're going to do boyer, but in the end, you are separating, and that's your objective. When your objective is to dry the dishes, and once you dry the dishes, I'm going to keep it into a mess. It's already in my hand. I'm not doing anything now when I put it in the right place. You understand? I picked it up not for the purpose of boyer. I picked it up because I'm drying the dishes. Now it's in my hand, so I have to mix it up. I don't have to mix it up. I can put it where it belongs. But if your objective is to separate, so when you started out, I want to do an active separation, even though you didn't decide which one you want to take, it's already a problem.
So at what point are you doing a malacha?
According to this, the minute you stick your hand in and pick something up, even though you don't know what you're getting, but your objective is to boyer.
So if I pick something up randomly and hand it to somebody else, and that person puts it in the correct place, who's doing the malacha, me or him?
Shnaim shasu.
Yeah, so nobody's doing it.
Shnaim shasu, still aser.
Rabbi,
Shnaim shasu is still aser. Not mutter. It's not aser deraisa.
Okay, so you're saying that both of us are doing the malacha.
Yeah.
What malacha is the second person doing?
I mean, between the two of you, you're taking a mixed thing and you're separating it. You understand what I'm saying? You have a mixed pile, and it's between the two of you, it's being separated. So, how exactly, what percentage is one doing, what percentage is the other doing? I don't know. It's similar to what an opinion that we came across. Although not everybody agreed with it, actually, some were lenient. The question was were you allowed to unmix something? We discussed it last week. Let's say the example of cutlery. It's mixed, but when something is spread apart to an extent that it doesn't look mixed, then it's not.
Throw it all over the table.
Exactly. How are you allowed to do that? So some said yes. I think Rav Moshe actually, and some said no, because if you're
Is it not Avodah Yosef who says you can do that?
Could be. It's in the notes there. I have the names, but some said no, because in the end of the day, your objective is to separate. So the fact is, it's an extended boyer. I don't remember who said that. So here it's a similar thing. It's just an extended boyer. That's what it seems to me.
Rabbi,
we have a lot of questions here. I think Rafael was first. Go ahead. 1 second. Yoram, 1 second. He was first? Go ahead.
I read that a statement, mixture of utensils like this, and then frozen on the table. The next person is allowed to pick.
We said that. Some said that, yeah. I think Rosh Hashanah Zalman said that if two people do it, one person unmixes and the other person separates. That's similar to what Yossi's saying. Yes.
What's the issue about taking things that are mixed and organized? It's not like a very fundamental, basic thing that I'm not getting.
That is boyer. That is what boyer is. Boyer is to sort. You don't want anything. You just want to put everything away. You don't want anything.
Why can't I put anything away?
Because that's what boyer is. Boyer is to sort. Boyer is to sort.
I'm sorting, to sort, not take what I want to eat.
No, boyer is to sort. When you take what you want to eat, that is mutter, because that's not boyer, that's derech achila. But any other sort of sorting is boyer.
So I missed the fundamental part of boyer. I mean, boyer is
Exactly.
once I start separating things, the heter for eating is that
Exactly. Without eating or usage, it remains awesome. That's the point of the Mishnah Berurah.
So the whole concept is once I start separating things, even if it's everything I want, take the knife, I catch each knife and put it in the drawer.
Oh, that's not called wanting. Wanting is to either eat or use. It's not to put away. That's not called wanting.
Okay.
You
No,
want to
tell us,
separate.
tell us.
You want to separate.
I want to separate.
That's not what wanting means. Wanting in this context means to either eat or use. That's
That's what-
that would be mutter, exactly. That's called derech achila or derech
So
shit.
if I have a mix of things, now I need 5 knives, so I'm allowed to take 5 knives, because that's what I need.
Exactly.
But to put them away, that's what I was saying, that's separating, that's the.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, Yoram, sorry about that. Go ahead.
In the case of the sakum, and the kapit, and mazleg, and sakum, let's say I decided it's not clean. I want to wash them. I wash them. Now I'm going to take one, dry it, and put it in the right spot.
Yeah, that we said is allowed.
This is allowed.
That we said is allowed. Give me a moment, please.
Okay. So if you decided it's not clean, and you put water in it, so you can take one and dry and put it wherever you want.
No, you can't put water on it and then dry it, because then you're just making an excuse how to do butter. Talking about if it's wet and you want to dry it, you can dry it and put each one away. I'm not talking about making a trick.
Also, if I decided it's not clean,
I'm sorry?
let's say if I want to clean it better. If I want to clean, לנקות אותו יותר טוב, אז אני שם מים.
Give me a moment, I have to just forward this, excuse me. Okay. Why do you have to be buyer? Just pick everything up and move it out of the way.
The only way to put it, it's not going to be interrupted to another is to put it in its place.
Understand? If things are mixed, why do you have to be buyer them if it's in the way? Just move everything aside.
But they're going to need space. The only side that the only place they're going to move, they're not going to be on my way. Later on, it is going to, I'm going to put them in their place.
No. No, I don't agree with your question. It's not a valid question, because if it's mixed, that means if you need the space, you move the whole mixture. What does that mean? And if they're separate and you only need one space, then they're not mixed. You want to sit on a chair, and on one side is apples, one side is oranges. That's not called a mix. You want to sit on that side, you move that side. You understand? And if it's talking mixed, then there's no buyer. You just take everything up and you move it away.
You have to not put together mix.
Yeah.
The seeds on the counter.
Yeah.
If you move to the other side of the counter, it's going to be probably something else.
Okay. So
So
move it to somewhere else. Move it to the kitchen. Move it to the table. Move it to the table. Move it. That's
on the table. I need the space for the food on the table.
So move it to the laundry room.
That's what I want to know. If you're allowed to be
No, definitely not.
And what if the person's putting books? Is he allowed to place things back? To me? During, let's say he has a pile of books on the table, he didn't have a chance to get them off. Erev Shabbos, and now it's Shabbos, he wants to put everyone back in its right place. So this book goes in this set, take another one, take the whole thing, and then this book goes in this set, this book goes in this set.
Interesting, Shaila. Based on what I said before about
What's the question?
if you have a pile of Sfarim, after shul, you want to put everything away. Can you take the top sefer in the pile and put it where it belongs, and then the second sefer and put it where it belongs?
Why not?
So, I mean, if you pick it up from the table and put it directly where it belongs, there's no problem, because it's not mixed. One by one. Once you put it back into a big pile, in which case it's mixed. Saying, let's say you have all the swarm on one table, you put it into one big pile, you carry it to the back of the shul, and now it's a mix. So now it's not a simple question anymore, because maybe it's like the guy who's separating the cutlery, where even if you're doing it one at a time, but if the whole purpose is to separate it out, then it's not mutter.
Surely, what it rests on is, does he need the table? If he needs the table, then he's just trying to move it away so that he can get to the table.
Maybe not. Maybe the shul should look nice, and maybe the people should have what to use. Oh, but that's already a shaila bar. They're putting it where they'll have it to use.
One second,
Not simple.
There has to be my input from in every single book before you put it back on the shelf.
Well, if you do that, that's great. But you have to do
this
that.
thing, like, I don't remember what but is the if you have it mixed, you have to open each book, look at it, and read the one and put it back. It's not work because actually it's the same concept of mistake like you get to Friday night and the spoon put them back in. So there's another action just before you put it. I don't remember when I heard, but it was a while ago.
All the sparim the same style.
Sorry?
All the sparim, like Sefer Torah, finish Kriyat Torah, and all the Torah is the same sefer. Okay?
If it's the same sefer, it's no problem at all. Ta'aroivus Sforim Shoinim. Oh, Baruch Hashem, Abba Farker is going to save me. I'm going to tell you what he says, and that's it. It's on his shoulders. I have to find things in this sefer. With the garden. Kilim Shonim and the Urolim. Kilim Sefer. Maftichot. Sforim Shonim. Okay.
Yeah, I found the back of sorry, I'll read it.
All right, he's pretty strict here. All right, I'll give you over Rabbi Farkash, and then the fall we'll give over Rabbi.
Brings everybody.
Brings everybody. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Here's Rabbi Farkash. First of all, he says, just to know what is a different min when it comes to a sefer. So obviously, a chumash and a siddur is different. Bereshis is different than Shemois, but if it's both, Chumash Bereshis, and they're just different prints or whatever, that might not be considered, l'chor, it's not considered a different min, unless they're used in a different way, one with Meforshim, one without Meforshim, whatever. Okay, another point he says is as follows. If they're on the shelf, he doesn't consider that a tarubas. Because from on a shelf are easily separate, you see everything in its place, you take what you want, it's organized. He doesn't consider that as tarubas. He considers tarubas in a pile, but not on the shelf. Either the shelf is just an organized pile, I don't know. That's a little bit subjective, but he considers, I'm sure he has sources, he considers that not to be a tarubas. If it's in a pile, he says as follows. If your normal way of putting Sfarim back is to take it one at a time and put it back, then you can. You pick up one, you put it back, if that's your normal way of doing it. But if you would normally take all the Sidurim and put them back, all the Chumashim, put them back, all the Bereshis, all the Shema, and now you're doing them one at a time in order to allow it, then it's just an extended boyer, like we said before about the Kalim. So that's his Shita. Yeah, Bakasha.
I just read it once, but so he brings the Taz and the Mishnah Berurah and the Kaf HaChaim that you have Borer in Kalim, Godim, and Sfarim, and everybody writes that the Ikal Halacha sheyesh din Borer gam b'dvarim she'enim gidul karka kekalim, Godim, and Sfarim.
Right.
But he says if you're doing them not back to back, you're doing them la'achar Siman, and they both need to be separated, they both need to be put away, and you don't have any specific reason to put one before the next, so then there's no psolat in ochel, he says, and this would be allowed. There are those who are strict. He suggests, since it's a chat, then he says, the Aruch Shulchan brings that ben kelim shetzorich simat yesh mechalkin, says the Aruch Shulchan. In kelim shetzorich sheet simat ayin lahavdil b'neim she'az yesh din brer b'kelim svarim gadim v'kadomet. The ben mikrim she'adavar nikar harber la'ayin haroy v'hevdil kigon chutzo v'chasam. Sakinu mazleg v'kadomet she'az ein kan din brer klal ela ma'asim v'tila ba'alma v'gam al svar zu yesh chulkin.
Okay.
So I guess the books are not so clearly differentiated like a pair of pants and a shirt.
Right.
I actually thought he was saying opposite. I thought he was saying that it's like that.
Right.
So the Rav at the end, the last little piece, he says in Shuti Bia Omer, he says that since it's a Safik Daraisa, if you have both of them in place, you can make that it's nicker, that they're different, like Svarim, like Chumashim and other Svarim, and it's being done at an elongated period of time, not one after the next. If you have both of those in place.
What do you mean by elongated period of time? I don't understand that.
He says, "V'gam borat shneim la'achar zman."
What does that mean?
I'll read the Makor where I said it before. I'd rather give it to you, but let's see where he said it.
I just know what it means.
It sounded like he was saying not to do it immediately, but it could be incorrect.
What does it mean not to do immediately? What does it mean?
Shbovet shuborat shneim la'achar zman, v'shneim tzrichim l'lasatram.
Borat shneim la'achar zman.
Shbovet shuborat shneim la'achar zman. You're right. Both of them, it sounds like you're doing it just la'achar zman, not one and then the next.
Not sure what that means. Unless he means that he doesn't need either of them. I mean, maybe he means like the Pri Megadim, when you're not using either one, and maybe that's a tzad leheter.
Especially talking about the pile makes doing Chumashim. Okay? And two people, one take all the Chumashim, and some the Chumashim take, and the other person says, when the Siddur is, take the Siddur. And put it in Shem. But each one take only one kind at a time.
No masking, no masking.
Not asking, but you're allowed.
I'm not.
Why not? What reason?
What's the difference? Shnaim shasu.
But no, but
If it's aser, what's the difference of two people? Doesn't make a difference. You don't need it, so why are you separating?
Can take one at a time either?
Wasn't a pile, but I just moved the chumash. This one when I'm taking chumash, the other person just takes this to do it. So each one just taking one kind that he needs it, he's supposed
He
to.
doesn't need. You're not saying he needs it. He doesn't need it.
He needs to make room. He's the gabayim, and they have to make room now for, I don't know, to prepare the table for kiddush.
I understand
Take
that.
up the books
I
and so
understand that. I understand he's making room. But why are you separating it out when you're making room?
Hmm?
Why are you separating it out when you're making room?
People can have the books up there for mincha.
Okay, mincha is preparing for a long time later.
So, we're taking one kind. We're taking out.
I understand, but you're taking one kind and it's not for immediate use.
It's usually what you separate also. Keep one kind.
One kind is not for immediate use. The fact that two people are doing it, if it's also for one person, it's also for two people. I mean, it won't be maybe the rice.
Taking chumash from the top of the pile.
Talmud Rabbi Forkash said, if you wouldn't normally take
Just
one at a
take the
time.
top one, not the top one. If I take the top one. No, I don't want to take the top one also.
I'm not going to give you a bigger head than Rabbi
No, I'm
Forkash.
just saying, listen, the way I know, just if you have it, you have to look in every book before you purchase it to make a pile. This is the way I
Adrabah. Go for it. The best way is not to make a pile. The best way is if, while they're still on the table, like spread out, you can mamish take all the siddurim because they're not mixed. You understand? If they're not,
For one each man.
no, not even one. If they're on the table, not mixed,
They're
just
all over. They're
all over, spread out,
out.
then you can take all the siddurim because they're not mixed. Boyer is only when it's mixed. I understand you made a pile, but you didn't take from the mixture. The whole Indian of breira, of boyer, is if it's a mixture,
But then you let it put it back
why not?
in its proper place. Each
Why
one in its
not?
proper place.
Why not? It was never
If you
mixed.
made a mixture.
You didn't make a mixture.
You're taking all the siddur.
You never mix them with each other. On the you have four tables. On the table, there's a siddur and a chumash. Siddur and a chumash. Everybody in the daven had a siddur and a chumash. He left them. So you're picking up all the siddurim. They were never mixed. They're sitting next to each other. They're not in a
I was
pile.
talking about just siddur. Let's say you have 5 different kinds of siddur. It wouldn't, let's say a Chabad shul wouldn't be such a big difference, or maybe it would, because it's all like, but in my shul we have like 5 different siddurim. There's the Sephardi one, there's the Ashkenazi one, there's the Hasidic
Right.
one, there's the Lubavitch one.
Right. I didn't see any of the Lubavitch ones.
What?
I was looking. I didn't see any of the Lubavitch ones.
They were there.
Okay, I have to look
One was
harder
on
next
the-
time. Look harder next time. Go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. If I just, when I had it in my mind, I wasn't thinking one same siddur.
So what do you mean? What do you mean? But are they mixed or are they just?
I'm making the mix. I'm picking up, let's say for example, after Tefillat Shachrit,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Let's say I go around, pick up all the siddurim, I have a big pile.
Ah, okay.
I go
That's
to the
already.
bookshop.
Now you already made a mixture.
Yeah, okay. so-
I'm saying instead of making a big pile, just take all the Sephardic ones, put them back. Take all the Ashkenaz ones. Take
That's
all.
what it says.
Okay, but I'm just saying that's that way you get out of the problem.
Oh, right.
'Cause
No,
if they
there you
never-
go, mix, yeah.
Exactly.
The 3 guys.
Yeah.
Just Sephardi, just Ashkenazi.
Then again, you can just announce, everybody, please
But you're
put
always
back
gonna
your siddurim and chamashim.
Do most people know this? I see people picking up whole piles. They're good Samaritans. They come around, take up all the chumashim, siddur and walk like this, and
No, usually they will not pick chumash and siddur together. They're not supposed to put the seed on top of chumash. So they will pick up one of the chumash. It's not happening. That's
I have to
why.
pay attention
One
to
kid, one kid take one of the chumashim, one kid take one of the siddur. They don't mix it together.
That's
Or
the good
also
way.
they just take the siddurim, all the siddurim, all the types, and no,
That's also true.
just put them back in its place.
That's also true.
So,
Yes, indeed. All right, Rabbi Isai.
want to check with the Lachar Zman one?
The problem is I didn't bring my Utzer, so if I
I'm gonna-
understand
I'm
it,
gonna-
I get it. If not, I don't. Didn't remember getting. אם יש שם שואפן שהוא בוער שניהם לאחר זמן, שניהם צריכים לסג'ם. That's the prima gauda. That's the prima gauda. He brings in the parentheses. That you don't need either of them.
That's the Lachar Zman?
Lachazman. It means you don't need either of them now.
Don't need either.
So then there's no boirer because they're both good. There's nothing bad about either one.
Right,
So
that's
yeah,
all.
I think that's
So
what it
what
means.
was what was the heter? What was the last heter? The last thing on the page? Otherwise, if you have both of them together, you'd be allowed to do it. You don't need them now, and they're nicker from each other. That would be a big leniency.
No, the first one is just the prima gada. Sorry, just the prima gada. Because ein kan gerish al pseles v'eichel, ein b'evin bar v'yemut l'berekein v'swar. Nothing to do with nicker. That's one thing. And there's another thing when it comes to simas ayin. That's another thing about things that are nicker or not.
Just here, then he gives the heter of when would you be allowed to do it.
Basically, the heter of the prima gada together with the heter of nicker, if they're nicker. Those two together, then he would allow.
So that's a big leniency.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking Chumash and Sidurim back.
And the Sidurim and Chumashim are visibly different. One is bigger, one is smaller.
So even all types of Sidurim are different. You have 5 different types of Sidurim.
Noticeably different. They have to
One's
be.
white, one's yellow, one's big and blue, one's big and
Okay,
red.
they have to be noticeably different. Not that you have to look carefully.
Yeah, they're completely totally.
Okay, not all are. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you have art scroll, for example,
Yeah, the
has Sfarad and Ashkenaz. You have to pay attention. So if it's something that
But if
you
it's a whole different color, that would be so. According to this, you'd be allowed to put them back if you have a.
Luchur, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I don't remember.
Bye.
You can put it on USB and put on the kitchen. Like coffee.
On the what?
Video.
And then put it where?
On the kitchen. This will happen everywhere you go.
Oh, yeah. No, now they make it smaller. They could even put it inside your computer. But it costs more money. So. Yeah, what do you say? Yaron, what do you say?
I said Ashkenaz, they have also two kind of Sfarim too.
Yes.
So this is problem if they pick up both of them?
I'm sorry?
Is the problem if they pick up the two different Sfarim?
If you separate them out, if they're mixed, then you separate them. If they're mixed,
you put it in the right. No, but if you pick up all the Sfarim and you put it the same shelf, doesn't matter which one is that.
you don't separate it, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
What do you say?
I was just trying to make a comparison to clothing. If a person has a pile of clothing,
Yep.
socks are much different than a pair of pants and a shirt, and etc. So, a person wants to put back his clothing into a proper place. What would be the issue?
That's a machlokes, he said. That chiluk is a machlokes. It's not so simple.
Consider
That's a, but I'm saying that's a chiddush. It's not pasha.
No, according to what he's saying.
According to what he's saying. According to what he's saying, yeah. Okay, so
Some say it's only psolat and ochel. So we shouldn't say that.
the idea that it applies to non-ochel is a chiddush. It's a chiddush that is accepted in halacha, but some disagree with it. Yeah.
And so the original question of putting the fork, knife, and spoons back in.
It's based on those that answer it, which is the halacha. Okay, some of the differences between minim.
Between?
Two different kinds of fish are considered different minim, even if one min is bigger pieces than the other. By the way, this is from the Alter Rebbe, not like what you were saying, about the fact that it's nigger. I forget where it's from. Maybe the towns. I don't remember. I'm sorry?
If you have a magash, many fish, small, big, you can pick up whatever you want.
Yeah, small, big is not considered a different minim. But if they are different minim, even though one min is bigger than the other one, you cannot separate them out unless you follow the rules of boyer. Meaning to say, take what you want from what you don't want and use it immediately. Okay, now, here's a chiddush. burnt fish and not burnt fish, edible but burnt, are burnt. They got burnt. That's two different minim. Like we had before, like the lettuce that's not so good. But here's a chiddush the Mishnah Berurah said. I never heard of this, but a fish that you caught live versus a fish that died. Nebuch, it got old, it died. That's a different min, because people don't like eating such fish. It's like unhealthy, you know. I'm just saying. The Mishnah Berurah considers that two minim. A fish that you caught live versus a fish that just died. Same type, same everything. But one is not so healthy. He considers it a different min. Big chiddush. How would you even know? Can't see any difference. Can't see any difference.
In the burnt fish, you know that's not good.
They all look the same, but you know one is healthy, one is not healthy. That makes it into a different min. It's a chiddush.
So it's going to be the same with the
organic.
Wild one.
I don't know.
Based on this,
It sounds like it would be.
the one that
If you want the organic.
salmon, the wild salmon, and the ones that raised in the pool.
I don't know. It's an interesting shaila. I don't want to extrapolate because I don't know what the big difference is between caught live and dead. So I can't expand based on it because I don't understand the big difference.
There's no.
Doesn't seem to be a big difference. So if I would understand it, then we could.
Skin, maybe it's rotting.
I would think it's just not so healthy because if it died, maybe something's wrong with it. You know what I'm saying? It's still kosher because there's no din of trephus by fish, but maybe people are nervous about it.
It's only the difference. It's one fresh, one non-fresh. That's it.
Okay, that's something else. Sorry?
There's a place on West Dixie, it's a fish store.
Yeah.
Pretty much what they do is they sell you fish, it's a fish store.
Uh-huh.
And they use a certain ultraviolet ray to take out all the worms. So my sister went and they took out in front of her eyes 3 worms in the salmon.
Wow.
So I'm thinking, it was a chiddush, that's a chiddush too. But, so I was thinking that just now, if a person has that type of fish and not that type of fish, it could also be a big deal. Saying just like it's like organic, I guess. One's a better fish, one's you enjoying.
It's the same fish, just with or without worms. Is that what you mean?
One's suffering, maybe has one, maybe doesn't.
You got other problems besides butter. That's very interesting. I didn't know they had such a thing. How does it work?
I wasn't there.
Very
See
interesting.
the thing, and they take it out in front of you. Show you the worm.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay.
It's a big differentiation in law.
I don't know.
I mean, if you can, that example is a very non-common example because you'll never know. But you don't go fishing for a fish. But if you can extrapolate to other type of things like that in every food,
Right.
there's a big difference in law.
Yeah. I don't know.
Mishnah Berurah is not a.
I don't know. A lot of this thing has to do with society. You understand? People consider it to be different. That gives it that getter. You understand? If people in that society consider dead fish versus live fish or fish caught live significantly different, that makes it different. You understand? So it could be in a society where organic is very important. Maybe Taka.
Because it's much more expensive. You see that they're more. It's not because people. Well, I'm sure there's a probably cost more money because they get to make less. But Lamaisa, people appreciate organic.
Right. Well, fish is not organic, but there's wild or farm.
Right. Oh, we're right. I'm saying in general things.
Right. Yeah. Chicken. Yeah, it's true. If people are makbid, you would think it makes a different getter halachically.
It has to do with society or has to do with you? If you don't care about eating organic, you have no preference. You'll never buy an organic apple.
I don't know. I think if people care, then
Turns it different for you?
I think so. If in the eyes of people it's considered different, then even though you don't care, I think it's different.
I mean, in my sense, there's a big difference. Whatever is non-organic has things that make it a worse quality thing,
Right,
like the fish. It's less quality.
right. Okay, I hear.
Can we maybe if anyone can find out if it's extrapolable, whatever the word is?
Yeah, I don't know. I do have to call Rabbi Boston about something else. I already tried, but if I get through to him, Bali Neder. About organic stuff, if it's different, if it's 2 minim. Sour versus sweet apples, and Mishnah Berurah says maybe they are, maybe not 2 minim. But if they're not edible, they are for sure 2 minim. Cooked versus roast meat, 2 minim. Meat from different animals at 2 minim. Different cuts of chicken, dark or light. Shlomo Zalman says 2 minim. Rabbi Yashiv says 1. Again, that could be that was societal. I mean, Shlomo Zalman and Rabbi Yashiv lived more or less in the same time in the same place, so I don't know exactly. But cuts like light and dark meat. So nowadays, people who are careful with their diet, they dafka want one, light meat, whatever. So maybe that makes it different. Okay, now the Mishnah Berurah has a big chiddush, and that is as follows.
Is that the symbol? I'm saying the same piece of meat? Same chicken?
Same chicken, different cuts of meat. So Rabbi Shlomo Zalman holds that they are considered different minim. Rabbi Yashiv holds not. Now, my understanding is that maybe it's not a machlekes, even though I don't know how, whatever, because like I said, they lived in the same time, but it's really a question of how people consider them. If there's just a different cut, I mean, for example, different cuts of dark meat are definitely not different. A drumstick and a triangle, whatever they're called. It's just a different piece of meat. It's not a different min. But when it comes to white and dark meat, some people are dafka makbid to only eat white meat. They don't want the fat of the dark meat. So because people treat it, because they like the taste.
Right, they don't like white meat.
Exactly. So I'm saying, so there you have differences that people give to these things.
How would you act? Not you. How would a person act? How do I know what everyone wants?
I'm saying the fact is I could understand Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's psak because people do treat them differently. At least in today's society. Maybe Rabbi Yashiv was seeing it in a...
Right, when you buy them, they're usually separated. If you're buying separated chicken, you'll never see white cuts with dark cuts.
Exactly. That's a sign of the way society cares about it now. I don't think it used to be.
Right, but I don't know if there's it's more of sometimes, you want white.
I'm just saying because people want white that you see how...
Sometimes want dark.
I'm just saying, but the fact is that people want these different things, and that's why they sell it that way. So that gives that importance, that difference. It would seem. I don't know. It's difficult to answer. Who am I to say? But I always have the feeling that Shlomo Zalman is like the final word on Hilchos Shabbos.
That's like that. I heard recently that even Ashkenazim don't go according to halacha.
Depends against who.
It just wasn't accepted. No, I'm saying if he gives one, there's only one speaks, maybe, but against almost everybody,
really?
I don't know why, but he's not considered like people do go like.
I don't know. Okay. I don't know. Okay. Okay, so here's a big chiddush of the Mishnah Berurah, my friends. Mishnah Berurah says, if the clothes are hanging and it's a mixture of different things, you can move aside what you don't want to get what you want. No question you can take what you want. But if the other things are on the way to getting what you want, you can move them aside.
So it's on your plate. My white chicken is on. Someone gave me white chicken on the bottom and dark chicken, or let's say something more firm.
Oh.
Someone gave me beans and then rice on top.
And you don't want the rice.
Whatever it is. And I don't want the top. I just want the bottom.
Exactly.
How am I supposed to get the bottom?
Exactly. That's the Mishnah Berurah also. Mishnah Berurah says the same thing.
Someone said not?
I didn't say that.
Oh, I'm asking.
I didn't say that, but he comes up with it like a big chiddush. Comes up with it like a big chiddush. He doesn't say it with a pshitas. He has a whole lumdus.
If you can get to it, it's just easier. Or you want to, then it probably wouldn't be allowed to move the things to the side. But if you can't get to it, it's so tight in the dakbet. You have to separate in order to get it. So what's the chiddush? You're allowed to move. You're allowed to take away psola to get to your ochel.
Here's what I wrote as far as his lamdas. His lamdas is because they're really not mixed. One is just on top of the other, so it's not considered a tikkun really for either one. In other words, when something is mixed and you remove what you don't want, you fixed what you want. It's a tikkun. So, I mean, he has a whole thing about mlach shein tzarich legufa. Whenever you take the psoilus, it should be mlach shein tzarich legufa, because you don't need the psoilus. But at the same time, you're fixing what you want. Understand? So here he says you're taking the psoilus away. You don't need the psoilus, and what you want wasn't really mixed. It was just sitting underneath it. So that's not a tikkun for that either. That's how he comes up with the chiddush.
So he was speaking about clothes piled on each other, or racked like a clothing, like hangers. I don't know if it makes a difference.
I think the chiddush of one on top of the other is an even bigger chiddush than one next to each other. I think he first speaks about next to each other, and then even a chiddush, even if one is underneath the other, which could apply to clothing also, not only food. Okay. Okay, two challahs, some baked better than others, is not too minim. Okay, let's do number 26, my friends. And this is the famous bones from fish question. The Bir Halacha speaks in a great arichas about this. He says many people remove the skeleton from the fish and the bones from the meat. The Ma'amer Mordechai says the chi of chatas. Nevertheless, the Mishnah Berurah and the Bir Halacha gives a few reasons to be melamed schos. So, first of all, if you're doing it while you're eating, mamish while you're eating, not beforehand, while you're eating, some say that's the derech achila. The derech achila, even to remove the psoilus from the oichel mamish while you're eating, some say that's derech achila and it's mutter.
That's not it for kids.
I don't know. According to this limud schus,
You're not the one that eating it. It's the kids.
okay, still. This is only a limud schus. It's only a limud schus. Some Rishonim hold. No, this is a limud schus for those that do it. I'm gonna get it. He's saying a few things. Secondly, he says if the bones have some meat on them, and you remove them and you eat the meat, that's also good. Yeah. You take off the bone, you eat the little piece of meat that's attached to it, and then you throw it away. That's it. You take off the bone, but there's a bit of meat attached to it. Another heter, he says, and this is a chiddush. This is the Mishnah Berurah. Another chiddush is that even if there's no bone attached to the meat, if you suck off the juice from the bone, that's also good. That's also oichel. You took off the oichel, you took the juice, then you threw it away. The Chazon Ish isn't so happy about that. Nevertheless. Okay, here is another chiddush that the Mishnah Berurah says. Listen carefully. He says, if you're doing it while you're eating, another reason to be mekel. Again, this is not a pashita thing, but he's saying those that are mekel have mokam lahakal. But even more than derech achila. Even more than derech achila. Some Rishonim hold that b'chlal, p'soilus u'moichel mamish while you're eating is mutter. But even more than that, he says, when the bone is together with the meat, maybe it's not even considered p'soilus, because it's mamish part of the food. Only when you separate it does it become p'soilus, but until that moment, it's not even p'soilus. So therefore, when you do it in a derech achila, it's not even considered p'soilus. Exactly. Until it's separated, it doesn't become p'soilus. Especially by marrow bones, by the way. Especially by marrow bones, where inside the bone is mamish, something edible. Okay. Now, I didn't write that Tzemach Tzedek here, but that Tzemach Tzedek is also metzaded lahakal. He's also giving room to be mekel, to remove bones from the fish while you're eating, based on the fact that some Rishonim hold psoilus from oichel is mutter while you're eating, and based on the fact that there's a svar to say that specifically bones from what you're eating is derech achila. That's like,
The Rav just said that with derech achila, it's only bone to meat, not when you have peas and carrots. You're taking out the carrots.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about bones, which are difficult to get out. It's difficult to take the meat out of the bone. It's much easier to take the bones out of the meat. So that's like a derech achila type of bar, more so than a regular psoilus.
So if I separated them on my plate, take away all the bones and remove them.
That's not so much. No, it's when it's connected. That's when it's a bigger makam lahaka. Not saying there's no matirim for that, but the pashtus of the heter is when it's connected. So that's more of a derech achila.
So if it's connected, like on my plate, it's connected to bone. Suck it up, get the meat, and put that bone in the same plate, or I have to put it in another plate?
No, either way, doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't make a difference.
Just don't mix it back in again. Then you'll have the same. You're back where you started. Put it on the side. So, Yaakov Yosef is also making about this. Small bones while you're eating. No, I don't think so. The point is that the small bones are hard to take the good from the bad. You understand? The big bones, you just take off. You just cut off the flesh. It's not a big deal. The small bones, it's difficult to do that. So it becomes a derech to take it out. See what I'm saying? Because you barely see them, so you can't just separate the meat and you have this little tiny thing. That's why it's derech achila.
Here, I'm saying with a fork and a knife, it's possible to take out meat from the bones.
Small bone, not so simple, because you can't even. It's hard to even catch it with the knife. You know what I'm saying? It's very small. So, based on continuing this question, actually, Yaakov Yosef also says that you're allowed to remove the small feathers from chicken skin. He considers this derech achila. Exactly. He doesn't consider it boyer, because it's derech achila. He doesn't consider it goizes, because they're soft. They're so soft, it's not a normal gziza. Gziza is a hard feather. Once it becomes soft through cooking, he doesn't consider it goizes. There are machmirim. Actually, that's another question. Is the chicken skin considered a separate min from the chicken? And I think the Achronim say nowadays it is, because some people are makbid not to eat the chicken skin. So it becomes a separate min. So that being said, if I understand, but I understand, but it's because some people are makbid not to, it may become a different meaning. The point is, if you want it,
but it said it's like the bones and the fish. It's like
if you need to get to the chicken, you can remove it for sure because it's like a peel. You can peel a banana here, so it's not a problem. It's just in advance is the question.
Maybe Abu Yusuf said it's allowed.
Oh yeah, okay. No. Could be. I don't remember.
I think he says also the big ones.
Yeah?
So from what I remember.
I don't have it here. I have to look it up, but what I wrote is the small bones. Okay.
There's like a huge difference when eating. That person wants to, for example, I'm disgusted by the skin, so I take it off immediately.
Right.
I mean, feel it. What do other people do? They would have to remove it.
No, if it's to get to what's underneath, that's mutter.
I can remove the whole thing at once.
Yeah, why not? Like you
So
can,
if you're going to eat it,
no, the point is you can't do it, if you're making a chicken salad in the morning for the afternoon, that would be the shayla, because that's not derech achila. But if it's before you're eating, whether it's eating it this second or in 10 minutes, that's all part of derech achila. It's not a problem. Okay, it's worth mentioning a difference between Shabbos and Yontif, which is brought in halacha. Shabbos, you always have to take what you want and leave behind what you don't want, because the whole point is derech achila. It has to be derech achila, even if it's a bigger tircha to take the oichel from the psoilas, because there's a lot of oichel and a small amount of psoilas. If you could just take the psoilas, it would be much easier. You don't have to worry about it. It doesn't make a difference. When you take out the psoilas, that's not called derech achila. It's called tikkun hamaychel. You take out the oichel, that's derech achila. On Yontif, it's the exact opposite. The point is to be mamayit from tircha, because the malechas oichel nefesh is mutter. Now that being said, there are issues with boyer if it's a type of thing that is done in big quantities. So if you want to cook beans, you can't separate the beans from the chaff, you know what I'm saying? Because that's done in big quantities. Usually you can't do that in Yontif. But when it comes to boyer with, things that you cook on the spot and eat on the spot, you don't do big quantities. So that is when we go by this rule. On Yontif, for the purpose of achila, you're allowed to be boyer, oichel nefesh. And the halacha is supposed to do it in a way that minimizes tircha. Whatever is easier to do is what you do.
You're allowed to check the rice on mental.
For bugs, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you find, you're in trouble. But besides that, if you're going to remove it, exactly. Well, if it's not infested, if it's one or two, whatever, you can remove the bad from the good. You can remove the infested one, remove the whatever you find, one or two, no problem, from the good. Okay.
Usually when you check rice in general, you're moving the good ones to one place. You just go to this sometimes and you just move the good ones. You'll finish all things, always the bad.
All right. Right.
Over here it says, but on Yom Tov, the pasolas dafka. So does that mean on Yom Tov we should remove the pasolas and not the ochel?
You should do whatever is easier.
Uh-huh.
I'm talking about a case if there's more tircha. If there's more tircha to get the oichel, then on Yom Tov you should remove the psolas dafka. Understand? Because it's going to be easier to do that. I don't mean that you should always remove the psolas. I mean if
Okay.
then you should specifically remove the psolas.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, then we came to the most fascinating sugya of all, which was the turmasin, the unique vegetable that the psolas is considered the oichel and the oichel is considered the psolas. Exactly, because the leaves give sweetness to the oichel. to the body of the thing itself. So the leaves are considered the oichel, and the oichel is considered the psoilus. Very strange. So we had different opinions about how to learn pshat. I'll just go through some of them, even though the Maisa will end up with what the Alter Rebbe and the poskim say. So the Rashi says the inferior beans become sweeter earlier. So even though they're an inferior type, but because they become sweet before, so at that point they're considered the oichel compared to the rest, which doesn't become ready till later. The Ran says the leaves are tough, but the oichel spoils easier. That means even though it tastes better, but when you pick it up, it becomes a mush. So it becomes like a psoilus. Oh, that's the reality, actually. Sorry. Okay. Here's what the Alter Rebbe says, like we were saying before. The leaves sweeten the oichel, and therefore they are considered the oichel, as opposed to the psoilus, which the oichel, which is considered the psoilus. So here's what it is. Listen carefully. Fine? Okay, listen carefully. When you take the oichel and you leave behind the psoilus of the turmicin, because those leaves are what gives the whole dish sweetness, they are considered the oichel, and therefore, even though you're taking what you want, the leaves that are left behind are considered this is where Befarkin explains. And you also want to eat those leaves. So it's considered that you're fixing them. Normally, when there's two minim, you take what you want.
But it's only if you're going to eat both together.
You're going to want to eat both. You're not eating them at the same time. You're going to want to eat both. If you don't want to eat the leaves, Rabbi Falker says it's not an issue. You want to eat it. So, if it would be two minim, what you want is oichel. What you don't want is psoilus. But here, they're both the same min, but not much the min. They're part of the same thing, but one is considered oichel, one is considered psoilus. You're not allowed to take psoilus, even if you want to use it right away, if you're fixing the oichel. Listen to the Chiddush. Mishnah Berurah takes this and extrapolates it.
Why are we not considering this
It's not a tavlin. It's something else.
The tavlin come to give taste to it.
But you eat it also. That's the thing. You eat it. Not just a tavlin. It's something that you eat. So listen carefully. Here's a way that will help you understand the issue. Let's say you want to do boyer for your animal. Your animal eats straw. Machaya takes straw. You have a mixture of grain and straw. Take the straw and give it to the animal. Right now, the psoilus is the oichel, because that's what the animals eat. So you can take the psoilus from the oichel and give it to the animal. For this purpose, the psoilus is the oichel. But listen carefully. If you plan on eating that grain, obviously grain is not usually edible, but let's say it's a type of thing that is edible. It's some kind of bean that's edible raw. And you're going to take the psoilus for the animal, you can give it to the animal, and then you're going to come back and say, I'm a chaya. I got some fresh peas ready to eat. No, that you can't do. Because even though you're using the psoilus, but you're taking the psoilus and you're fixing the oichel at the same time. So that's the issue with the turmicin. When you take the actual stuff and you're leaving behind the leaves, which are considered, they're considered oichel, even though you don't want them right now, you want them later, they're considered oichel because they are what gives it sweetness. at the time that you're taking what is considered psoilus, you're fixing what is considered oichal, even though you want the psoilus now. This is the whole chiddush.
So, but if in the beginning, the psoilus is psoilus.
What do you
And then
mean?
after this pole become actually something that you can eat. Before that, you cannot.
I mean, after you cook it, you're left with psoilus and oichal, but the psoilus is what gives the sweetness, so it's considered oichal.
And the ochel actually becomes psoilus, or the ochel remain ochel?
No, the oichal becomes psoilus. The oichal becomes like psoilus. So all you would be allowed to do is take the leaves and eat them, and then you can eat the inside later. But you cannot take the inside and leave the leaves.
You want to stick it together?
Together is together, no problem. But that's an interesting chiddush that is an afkamina based
Basically,
on.
they switch places.
Yes,
Ochel
correct.
becomes psoilus, so become ochel, so therefore you have to eat the original psoilus that is ochel now first.
Exactly. But what we're left with is a chiddush that you cannot take psoilus for immediate use if it fixes the oichel.
Do we see it in other cases besides the shalitin over here?
I just gave you an example. You cannot take straw to feed the animal if you're going to be left with oichel that you want, because you fixed the oichel at the same time.
But this is the only way you can feed the animal. The texture, the wheat and the straw is mixed together. Just pick up the straw and give the animal.
Okay, you have a
It's
problem?
too much.
You have a problem? Take care of it before Shabbos, or take the oichel and eat it, and then give the rest.
You want to say, in the case of the straw, okay, instead of this, I bring the animal to the pile and she eating what she wants.
That's okay.
That's okay. Then I've left the wheat is fine.
Yeah. No problem. Okay. Shlomo Zalman says you can remove the pits from the melon. That's because they're not really considered mixed. But he says better to do right before eating, so it should be considered derech achila. Okay, taking a wet piece of kolik and pah we discussed yesterday. Tea bag from tea. Yalkut Yosef says that is not considered boirer. And
You said here in 29 that they are removing the pits from a melon is not a problem as they are considered separate, or they're not considered separate.
They are. I mean like a cantaloupe, where they sit in the middle, like a little pile of seeds. And Shlomo Zalman, perhaps that's not even considered boirer at all. Maybe you can even do it in the morning, because it's not really mixed. But to be safe, he says better to do right before eating. Okay, tea bag from tea. Rabbi Isai. The heter is, number one, some say that liquids and solid are not a mix because they're considered separate. Some say they are considered a mix. So the fly in the soup is the big nafkamina. The maisa, there are some who make a compromise and say, if it's a big solid in a liquid, then it's not going to be considered a mix. A small solid, maybe yes, like the fly in the soup. But a big solid, no. So therefore, they want to be makel with the tea bag in the tea, because it's pretty separate and distinct. Of course, you have to make tea in a permissible way. That's a whole different question. But as far as boyer, that's, there's makom lahater. Okay, a filter on the faucet, the Yalkut Yosef says is okay, because the filter, it doesn't really change the water. The water goes through who knows how many filters, and one extra filter is not going to make it or break it. And it's like what we're going to learn later in this Siman, that you're allowed to filter clean water, even with a strainer, because it's not considered a significant change.
I mentioned last time only if a person would not like
Exactly.
to drink
Exactly.
filtered non.
Yeah, that's in the Shmir Shabbos. 135, the Alkud Yosef says some are lenient with a slotted spoon. I don't remember what the heter was based on.
Because I think you're taking what you want. Sounds like a clean the other.
Taking what you want, but you can't use a keli. So what's the heter? I don't remember what the heter was. I have to look it up.
I think if you're not allowed,
Okay, here is a chiddush. The Alkud Yosef says you're allowed to make yogurt on Shabbos. You can take milk, put it into a yogurt machine that you turned on before Shabbos. You know, they have these machines at certain temperature. Leave it in overnight. In the morning, you have fresh yogurt. So Reb Vosner actually told me, I asked him the shayla a while ago, that he considers that boina. You're definitely not allowed to make cheese on Shabbos. That's clear. And the Gemara says that to make cheese on Shabbos is boina. The shayla is, at what point does it become cheese? In other words, yogurt is not really cheese. I mean, it's soft. So the Alkud Yosef obviously holds that level of thickness is not considered to be solid to the extent that it's considered boina, but Rabbi Vosner holds that it is. So I'm just sharing those opinions with you. Actually, speaking about making cheese, I'll just skip to the end of the Siman a little bit because we already mentioned it, that to separate curds and whey is considered boyer. Meaning to say to put an enzyme into the milk, which is going to separate the curds and the whey and make cottage cheese out of it, is considered boyer. Now the question is, why should it be considered boyer? After all, it's one min. It's one min. So it's liquid, solid, it's all going to be cottage cheese. What's the difference? So here the Alter Rebbe has a chiddush. I mean, I don't think it's Alter Rebbe's chiddush. I think it's from beforehand, maybe it's Magen Avraham, I don't remember who. That when it comes to separating a liquid and making a solid out of it, you understand? So your mamish taking a liquid and creating a solid from within it, that is considered boyer. That is considered boyer, more so than just two types of the same min, two parts of the same min. So that's a chiddush. When it comes to the yellow and the white of the egg, they're both egg. So therefore, really, there should be no boyer with the yellow and the white of the egg. However, if one of them would be used for eating and one for not eating, then maybe there would be a problem. But if one is used for coloring and one is discarded, then it's not a problem. This was the interesting case of the naturally colored mustard. Nowadays you buy mustard, you read the ingredients and you'll see yellow number 7 or 5 or whatever. They used to do it naturally with the yellow of the egg. So we had the case where you had the mustard already separated before Shabbos. The seeds were on the bottom and the chaff was on the top. And what they used to do is they used to break an egg and puncture the yolk. So the yolk would go down. And the white, which is like kind of more thick, would stay on the top. And then the yellow would go to the bottom and color the mustard seeds. So that is mutter. Why? Even though you're going to end up eating the yellow and leaving behind the white, so it looks like oichel and psoilas. The chiddush was because you don't really care for the yellow for eating. It's just that you like the color of it. Really, there's no real difference between them. It's just for the color, it's not for the eating, so that means it's not a real difference between them, and therefore it's not considered boyer to separate between them. In other words, if one would be an oichel, one would be a psoilas, when you would one for eating and one for throwing out, that would create like a situation of two minim. But if they're neither, one is for flavor, one you don't need b'chlal, one you just need for its color, that's not considered enough to make it two minim. And therefore it's mutar. All right, so we do have a few more things to discuss, not that much. We have basically from 37 to 54 minus the cheese. So we'll just need a few more minutes tomorrow night to finish that up. I have to look up the slotted spoon. What else? Oh, there was something else. We'll ask what it was there. Organic chicken.
For anything, it's a general question.
Yes. And that's it. We'll discuss more about the fly in the soup also tomorrow night. Correct. What I was planning to do was to finish Bar tonight and to finish Shin Chaf tomorrow. I would like to finish both tomorrow. Shin Chaf is not a hard, it's a bit long, but it's not that hard. So that's what I'm going to plan. Schita.
What time is coming tomorrow?
8:20. Let's go for 8:20, please. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
My pleasure. Nice to see you, Yosef.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
יישר כוח.